Can I get married a second time? What does the Bible say? This is a question that many Christians ask, especially those who have gone through a divorce or lost a spouse. Marriage is a sacred institution created by God, but is there permission for a second union? Let's look at God's Word and understand better. God's plan for marriage. From the beginning, God established marriage as a union between a man and a woman. Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Jesus reinforces this principle in Matthew 19:6. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let no man separate. Marriage, according to the Bible, is a commitment of faithfulness and love that reflects the covenant between Christ and the church. Ephesians 5:25. The Bible teaches us that God hates divorce, Malachi 2:16. But Jesus mentioned an exception in Matthew 19:9. But I say to you, whosoever divorces his wife, except for fornication, and marries another, commits adultery. And he who marries the divorced one also commits adultery. This means that if there has been betrayal, divorce may be allowed. But even so, the ideal is to seek forgiveness and restoration of the marriage whenever possible. Another situation discussed in the Bible is when an unbelieving mate decides to leave the marriage. In 1 Corinthians 7:15, Paul teaches, "But if the unbeliever wants to depart, let him depart. For in this case the brother or sister is not subject to servitude, but God has called us to peace." If the unbelieving spouse leaves the marriage, the believing party is no longer bound to that union. What about when a spouse dies? In this case, the Bible is clear. Whoever becomes a widower or widower is free to remarry. Romans 7:2 says, "For the wife that is in subjection to her husband as long as he liveth is bound to him by the law. But when her husband is dead, she is free from the law of her husband." That is, marriage ends with death, and the person can remarry without it being considered a sin. If the marriage ended because of adultery or abandonment by the unbelieving mate, or if the person was widowed, the Bible allows for a new union. However, if the divorce occurred for other reasons, the path of reconciliation should be prioritized. The most important thing is to seek God's direction and act wisely. A second marriage should be done with prayer, counseling, and within the Lord's will.